Lesson 20. Capital letters and punctuation marks. Capital letters. In English, capital letters are at the beginning of a sentence. Mangoes are very tasty. For the names of people, places, rivers, etc. Ravid, Nupur, Kolkata and the Yamuna. For the names of countries, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Italy. For the names of days, months, festivals, etc. Sunday, October and Pongal. For the titles of a person, Lieutenant General, Justice, Professor, Miss, Mr, etc. For the titles of books, Malgudi Days and David Copperfield. Punctuation. A punctuation mark is a symbol such as a full stop or period, comma or question mark that you use to divide written words into sentences and clauses. Commas. We use commas for many purposes that we have learned earlier. They separate groups of words or items in a list or series. We use and, or, before the last item. The comma before and, or is optional. Examples: My sister is studying mathematics, statistics and economics. The tournament could be held in Chennai, Bengaluru or Hyderabad. When there is a series of adjectives before a noun, we can drop the and before the last one. Example: A tall, well-dressed, timid-looking lady walked into the shop. We do not use commas if the adjectives have a cumulative, building-up effect. Example: We saw some really cute little puppies in the park. They set off direct speech. Examples: Mr. Sharma said, "Let's all go for a movie tonight." His wife and children shouted, "Yes!" We put them around phrases or clauses that add extra information but do not affect the basic meaning of the sentence. The sentence would be complete and grammatically correct even if these extra words were deleted. Examples: Most items on sale are, in my opinion, of very poor quality. My uncle and aunt, with their 4 dogs and 3 cats, live in a small, ramshackle cottage. Sri Raja Ram, the managing director of the company, rewarded the workers for their hard work. Today, we are here to remember the founder of our school, the late Mrs. Asif Ali. They are used to break up long sentences and to indicate places where one may pause while reading. These commas are not grammatically essential and they do not affect the meaning of the sentence. Examples: The door flew open and a lady, clad in some dark-colored material with a black veil, entered the room. When she had tried every possible strategy for solving the puzzle and was still struggling after more than 3 hours, Anjum decided to seek help from her parents. In long compound sentences, put a comma before the conjunction. Example: The decorators worked as fast as they could, but the stage was not ready till almost midnight. Commas separate introductory words, phrases and clauses from the rest of the sentence. Examples: However, we must wait a while longer. No, Raju has not come to school today. Hello, how are you today? Outside the house, the garden looked beautiful. Exhausted and hungry after our long walk, we were glad to reach the rest house. They separate question tags from the rest of the sentence. Example: The weather is lovely, isn't it? We use them to set off the names or titles of people being addressed. Examples: Ankur, Miss Aarti Mehra is looking for you. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. We use commas to separate contrasting or comparative statements in a compound sentence. Examples: The more you worry, the less you can accomplish. The film was not funny, just boring. You cannot put a comma just anywhere in a sentence. The following are always wrong. Examples: Exercising regularly will improve your fitness. Between subject and verb. We are learning how to punctuate sentences. Between verb and object. I bought apples, potatoes, eggs and bread from the market after the final item in a list. Do not put commas around phrases and clauses that are essential to the meaning of a sentence. Example, I am reading a story that Raj has written for the school magazine. Punctuating direct speech. When a sentence repeats the exact words spoken by somebody, they are enclosed in quotation marks and are separated from the main sentence by commas. When the quoted words are at the end of a sentence, we put a comma before the opening quote. The full stop, question mark or exclamation mark at the end of the quotation is within the quotation marks. Examples. Rati asked, "Can I borrow your copy of The Half-Blood Prince?" Janak replied, "Certainly, but my mother is reading it right now. I will give it to you next week." If the quoted words are at the beginning of a sentence, we put a comma after them, before the closing quotation mark. We omit the comma if the quoted words end with a question mark or exclamation mark. Examples. Janak has promised to lend me The Half-Blood Prince next week, Rati told her father. Is he still reading it? Asked her father. No, but his mother is, replied Rati. Sometimes quoted words both begin and end in a sentence. If the first part of the quoted ends with a complete sentence, put a full stop before the second part. Example. A patient, said she. You will have to go out. If the first part of the quote ends mid-sentence, continue the quote with a comma before it. Example. I met her, said my wife, at the school. Apostrophes. Apostrophes are used to either show possession or contraction. Apostrophes are used to show possession. Adds for singular nouns and for plural nouns that do not end in s. For nouns that end with an s sound, we can use either apostrophe s or apostrophe alone. Examples. Thus, both of these are correct. Luton's Delhi, Luton's Delhi. The teacher's house are behind the school. Do not use an apostrophe with possessive adjectives and pronouns. Hers, its, ours, theirs. Is this ours? Is this ours? The kitten is in its box. The kitten is in its box. Apostrophes take the place of missing letters in contractions. Contractions are two words merged into one. Contractions are common in spoken English. Don't forget to add apostrophes in contractions. Don't, do not. Examples. I'll finish my homework in an hour. I will. Rohini couldn't come today. Couldn't, could not. Rohini told me she would come. She would. The apostrophe can stand for missing numbers. Examples. One night, it was June 89, the doorbell rang. 89 stands for 1889. The following are some commonly used contractions. Are not, aren't. Have not, haven't. I am, I'm. It is, it's. She is, she's. We will, we'll. Who has, whose. You are, your. Cannot, can't. He is, he's. I have, I've. Let us, let's. She has, she's. Were not, weren't. Will not, won't. You have, you've. Could not, couldn't. He has, he's. I would, I'd. Must not, mustn't. There is, there's. We have, we've. Would not, wouldn't. Has not, hasn't. He will, he'll. I will, I'll. She will, she'll. They will, they'll. Who is, whose. You will, you'll. Semicolons. A semicolon represents a longer pause than a comma, but a shorter one than a full stop. The use of a semicolon is rarely essential. It can usually be replaced by a full stop, comma, or conjunction. When the items in a list or series are long, we can separate them with semicolons instead of commas. This is useful when the items themselves contain commas. Examples: my favorite pastimes are embroidery and knitting, watching films, especially comedies, practicing dance, and playing with my friends. We can use semicolons to put closely related statements into a single sentence without any conjunction. Examples: the train was 5 hours late. We settled down for a long wait at the station. I left her about twilight. A walk of 2 miles lay before me. It was a clear, frosty night. This is how one writer has described the semicolon. With a semicolon, you get a pleasant little feeling of expectancy. There is more to come. Read on. It will get clearer. When used instead of a conjunction, it should be possible to replace the semicolon with a full stop. Example: school was closed yesterday because many roads were flooded. Colons. A colon represents a longer pause than a semicolon and has slightly different functions. Colons are never used with fragments of sentences. The words before a colon should always form a complete sentence. We can use a colon to introduce a list that comes after a complete sentence. Examples: these are the places we saw in Delhi: India Gate, Jantar Mantar, the Red Fort, Humayun's tomb, and the Qutub Minar. John likes these sports: cricket, tennis, and football. Not John likes cricket, tennis, and football. John likes is not a complete sentence. We can merge two statements into a single sentence with a colon. We do this when the second statement explains, completes, expands on, or gives an example of the first. Examples: I learned a useful lesson from my grandmother. Never cry over what has already happened. Our hard work was not wasted. We got the first prize. There is nothing like having a relaxed breakfast. It keeps you calm for the rest of the day. There is only one thing Mr. Robert can never tolerate or forgive: deliberate cruelty to an animal. Colons are sometimes used to introduce long quotations. Example: the president then narrated an incident from his childhood. I was a schoolboy at that time, studying in 4th class in Rameshwaram Panchayat School. Those days we did not have electricity and we used to study under a kerosene lamp. I was reading the lessons loudly and I heard a knock on my door. We never used to lock the door in Rameshwaram in those years. Hyphens and dashes. The hyphen and the dash are often confused because they look similar. However, they have very different functions. A dash is longer than a hyphen. A hyphen is different from other punctuation marks. We use hyphens when combinations of words are used as adjectives and placed before nouns. Examples: my 3-year-old sister scribbled all over my homework book. The hospital maintains up-to-date records of outpatients. Patthar Panchali is one of Satyajit Ray's best-loved films. We use prefixes with words. Examples: non-passengers are not allowed beyond the entrance hall of the airport. My grandfather was a self-educated man. The children need to rest for a while. They are overexcited. For writing fractions like 1/5 and 3/4 and the numbers 21 to 99. Many prefix word combinations and compound words are so commonly used that they do not have hyphens anymore. Examples: some examples are seaside, postgraduate, anticlimax, unnatural, unknown, and antibiotic. On the other hand, some commonly used words are always spelled with hyphens. Examples: some examples are mother-in-law, test tube, baby, tiebreaker, foot and mouth disease, t-shirt, short-sighted, good-looking, middle-aged, right-handed, long-distance, phone call, old-fashioned, and X-ray. The dash is the most flexible punctuation mark. It can be used instead of a comma to indicate a pause or to separate additional information in a sentence. It can also be used instead of a colon. The dash is considered less formal than the colon or comma. Examples: we stopped work at noon, for it was very hot, and resumed in the evening. My best friends Amit, Roshni and Sohail are all out of town. The bag contained a half-eaten apple, 3 old bus tickets, and a dirty comb, and my lost wallet. My class teacher is kind and patient even when we cannot understand things, although she does get upset when people don't do their homework. Anybody can win the prize. It could even be you. A dash can be used when there is a sudden change of topic or an interruption in speech. Examples: we might have won if Raghav had taken the last catch, but let's not talk about that. The teacher continued, as I was telling you, Akbar was a great... What is that funny noise?